Hello, folks, and welcome to Out on a Limb, a Lovers Lane podcast. My name's Stephen Lashley. I'm one of the hosts of this podcast, and I'm joined by...
I am Reverend Macy Liptoy, the co-host of this podcast.
And I was super excited for this episode before we did it, and now I'm super excited for you to be listening to it after the fact, because we had two very special people with us today. We had Morgana Wilborn, who is the Director of Education at Dallas Theater Center, serving on the leadership team, the Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion Committee.
And we also had on Ilknur Ozgur, who is the director and founder of Art Stillery, which is a performance nonprofit that empowers marginalized communities. And both these people actually are on my team, kind of at 723, and they have been a great partnership in that space. And so I was just really excited to bring them into Lovers Lane. Both of them, don't go here, but they participate in our community down in West Dallas, and are just brilliant people, really and truly. And we talk in this episode about being present and what does it mean to be fully present in the moment. And their experience in performance and offering and making healing space for people really lends itself to that.
Yeah, it's they're both in acting and stage performance, and the work that they do through Art Stillery is really interesting work, because it's so oftentimes the shows that they do are very immersive. Yeah. So sometimes the audience members are part of the set. They're part of the story, the script. Yeah. And they can even change it from night to night, which is a really cool way to do performance art. But that lends itself to being able to create an ability to be present not only to your emotions, to the things that you're feeling, to the ways that God might be speaking to you, but it also opens it makes you be able to be present with other people as well.
Yeah, they talk about that a lot in this episode of, the work that we do at 723 really is about creating space for people to be heard. And that's a big part of what we do, and I think an important part, especially right now during a time of kind of separation and isolation. How do we create space for folks to be vulnerable, for people to share what they're feeling, and whatever that looks like? And so they offer really great advice and beautiful stories about the ways they've experienced openness and open space and healing. And I was just real proud as the pastor of 723. It's really nice to hear you people tell beautiful stories about what happens in that space. And so
it's really cool. I learned a lot, and we hope that you learn a lot. So welcome to our conversation with Ilknur and Morgana.
Hey, y'all.
Hello.
Sorry, we have antics before we start rolling that gets us in the jam to do some really fun things, and this is what's happening. So, how are y'all doing? Ilknur, it's so good to see you.
It's so nice to see you. I just saw you.
12 hours or 24 hours ago.
24 hours ago.
Yeah. Morgana?
Oh, that was.
Yeah.
It's so good to see you.
It's good to see you, too.
It's good to be seen. Good to be seen. It is good to be seen.
Oh, man. Steven, what's up? You got coffee?
I got coffee, but I'm running low, so
we've got 30 minutes before he turns into a grunt.
Before I fall asleep at this desk.
That's how we live our lives.
Yeah.
It's all good. Well, so this is a Lovers Lane podcast, and you guys actually don't go to Lovers Lane at all.
We do not. We're special guests. We need to leave now. Bye.
I think, for every episode up until this point, we've had someone on the episode that's been a part of this community. And you guys kind of are a part of this community, but a different way. You participate in our 723 ministry in West Dallas, which just happens to be where they put me as a pastor. Mm-hmm. So we're talking about today, just kind of this season of Advent, which is the season that we prepare for Christmas and talk about, the birth of Jesus and everything. And our series is about Christmas presents, which is a play on present and presents.
Ding.
Hey.
You caught that, didn't you?
That's a good pun.
Macy didn't catch on to that for 3 episodes.
That's accurate. There's definitely an episode where he says, Christmas presents. And I was like, oh. And he goes, you did not just get that. And
50 years later, good for you.
I work hard to make this happen. Yeah. I feel like this episode is just gonna be them razzing me,
Roasting you.
the entire.
This is the roast.
Can we roast?
The
I think
Macy-
that was
the
my
roast of
goal,
Macy?
but I'll cool it.
We've been waiting for
Ilknur,
this
you
for
could
a
do
long
it.
time.
God,
Ilknur, you can roast Macy.
I've only been here since like July 1.
I remember a time.
Remember that one time we had a rat at 723?
Oh my gosh.
Remember that roach at 7:23?
Oh, I forgot about the roach. Did you know the roach story?
No.
I know a roach story at 7:23. I just saw it on someone's Instagram.
I mean, it's not like it's not in depth, but we were cleaning the building in August because it sat basically for months during COVID.
Yeah.
And so we went in and we're like cleaning up, and we found this roach like up on the wall.
It looked like a small mouse.
Was he albino?
No,
What's
he
the
was
Sometimes that happens.
he was a brown boy.
For real, there's albino roaches?
Yeah. I thought you were going to say he was there so long. It was albino. That was not the story. Thank you for letting me take it away from you.
I'm freaked out though. Are there really albino roaches? No.
Did you make that up?
Did you make
No,
that
I
up?
didn't make that up.
Google it. I'm sure
I
there
remember
is.
seeing one at my house when I grew up.
Hold
and I was
on.
like, whoa.
I gotta Google that because if that's a real phenomenon.
So when you say
Albino
albino roach, what color is it?
I don't know. Like,
Is it clear? Is it translucent?
Yes, it's something weird like that. Hey, come on.
It's got a milky
Oh, he found
exoskeleton.
it, he found it.
Look at Steven's
What it look
face.
Albino white cockroach. They're a thing. Oh my god.
I don't even want to know that they exist. Where do they live?
The first thing that pops up is what the heck is an albino roach?
Well-
Cockroach facts. There's a
Cockroach
website
facts.
called Cockroach Facts.
Hashtag roach facts.
Is that what you were reading?
That's freaky.
Perhaps.
On first dates.
That's it.
Look at that picture.
God.
No.
Yeah. Well,
Holy
back
moly.
to your story.
No, that was
led
not-
us astray.
Well, my story is now nothing compared to that monstrosity
I'm
that
so
you just
sorry
revealed
I
to
brought
us.
here.
You learned something new that you didn't think you needed. Like,
Oh Lord. Basically, I if there are two things in this world that I cannot stomach, no, three things. It's the word congealed, rodents.
I don't like that either.
I know, right?
congealed.
I hate that.
Yeah.
And then roaches. Like I can do spiders. I don't love them, but I can kill them. Like I can do crickets, geckos, whatever. Roaches, I just can't handle. And this one was like on the wall in the corner.
This was wasn't this after you had me run to Home Depot and do my fake trick that I came up with using hole filler? That's
Oh my gosh, he put it on the screen.
the spongy stuff.
Look at
That's
this.
Oh.
that was good. That was really
glad
good.
I missed
I
that
match
one.
it.
No.
I match it. I'm its mother.
There's an albino roach on the wall behind you.
Not a
Facts.
real roach, listeners.
What
It's
is
on
this?
the screen.
I feel more comforting.
Why is it called Facts and Solutions?
Anyway. But yes, so you had just gone to the store to get stuff to
I
like
had to go pay Home Depot for a broken piece of glass so I could smash it and powder it
Yes.
into the spray foam, which we were putting into
To
a
stop
wall
the
at
rat.
723 to kill a rat.
which his name is Napoleon, I believe.
Man, this is making me want to go to 723 right away.
You don't want to spend the night there. So then
But so then we found this roach, and it was like, it was a big boy. And I kind of lost my mess a little bit because
she straight up jumped and hid inside of a chair. Like she made herself so small.
that
What did
is
you do,
true.
Ilknur?
And then I felt like I needed to save her.
Yeah.
Because that's my job.
Yeah. You had to come in.
So I had to get a ladder
Yes.
and
yeah.
a weapon.
A weapon.
And she went for it, and since it was in the
a chuck and a
corner,
climber, and it was
Like
in
a
a
shoe?
corner.
and it,
Man, roaches are fast too.
yeah,
Didn't get it.
Like,
this
Ooh,
thing
it
ran
wasn't
away.
A flying roach, was it?
No, it fell
There's-
down.
It was like this big.
look, they can move probably faster than I can run, like,
Yeah.
proportionally.
Same.
So now that we've like alienated all our listeners talking about roaches for 10 minutes.
Yeah, sorry about that, folks.
Just edit all
Sorry,
that
guys. No, it's good fodder. It's me. It's one of those things that's like, these are the things that we deal with. These are the things that they don't tell you about in seminary.
Well, it's like the theater roach. It's like you've got church,
The
church mouse,
theater root.
the theater roach. Oh man! Which is related to 723.
I mean, it is. I mean, that's kind of the beauty of it is that you never know what you're going to experience when you walk in the door.
You don't.
You never do.
But you feel because I think we've gone through those experiences in those buildings, that energy we always leave it behind in the building.
Oh yeah.
And that's always been the coolest experience there, is if somebody comes and puts a negative energy into it, which has happened, the rest of the team all feel, we don't even need to talk about it. We go, after they leave the building, we go, who's got the sage? Remember?
That's why it was good with Generations, because we got to literally sage
it
and
out.
incense the space every night.
Yeah.
Generations was the show that Art Stillery put on last October that ran in our space. That was a stellar, beautiful production.
That's Generations of Adam?
Yeah, Generations of Adam, yep. And y'all did the research actually out of our young adult group and some of it. So yeah, it was stories that, talked about trauma and how do we heal from that. And it was really, really stellar. But yeah, it's a fun space to be in. So if you're ever interested, come on down to 723. You can meet the roach and the rat and all of us cool people.
Oh no, they're not there anymore.
Oh yeah, they're not. We actually, we think we got rid of the rat, which is
I don't know if we killed it yet. I did smell
That
dead
rat has got
carcass
to
at one
go.
point. I mean, I had to climb ladders and spray foam and I don't even think I had gloves on or
No,
a mask.
no.
So I'm probably inhaling the glass that I'm in hopes that it eats it and it kills it from the inside.
we
You were hoping that you were going to try and like bleed a roach from the inside out?
Bleed a rat.
a rat.
Bleed a rat from the inside
I was
out.
like, what is happening?
That
Yeah.
is crazy.
I mean, these are the things, like, there's no class in seminary where they're like, hey, guess what? You get to go down and do really, really cool ministry in West Dallas that looks nothing like a normal church, but you got to figure out how to kill a rat. And by figure out, I mean, ask your people to do it because you're afraid of rats. Which is why
We become a family.
Thank goodness
I mean,
y'all were there.
We
I
would
wasn't,
kill.
but-
I would kill anything. For me. Almost
I
anything.
would have hit
I
it
mean,
on top
what
of
we're
her
talking
in a
about.
chair too.
Yeah.
I appreciate it. So we're talking about, theater and, being in theater and doing these productions. And so I'm just interested in y'all's experience. Both of you have a really wide breadth of experience in live productions and theater and performance. And so one of the things that I think is very interesting about being in live performance is the fact that you have to be fully present in the moment. There's no time that you can kind of like zone out or space out, or if you do, you miss your cue, and that's never a good thing. So I just kind of want to hear from y'all's talk about your experience so far in the theater, because these people who are listening are getting to know you for the very first time. I know you guys, but Steven doesn't know you, and the people who are listening doesn't know you. So just talk about kind of who you are and what you do. And either one of you can go first. Doesn't matter.
I mean, I want to open up with that line that the Dallas Observer made fun of me for, because I said,
Oh yeah.
because they still called me a theater nerd, which was great. It was fantastic.
Sure.
But I said, I am not a theater person. I'm a performance artist person.
It's true.
And then for some reason they're like, but she's still a theater nerd. And it was really sweet. It was really sweet.
Yeah.
I mean, I think what we do is performative arts. And we do not follow the status quo. I mean, I know that Morgana and myself have been both classically trained and
Right.
hold advanced degrees in the traditional form. But also, if I had the ability to go reprogram a university's
Right.
theater program, I would absolutely change it, because it's been kind of the same for a really long time.
I literally got to teach in my classes that I'm teaching for the community college. It was fun to be part of Art Stillery, to teach some Art Stillery stuff.
Yeah, you brought Art Stillery into the classroom. Our partner Michael Cleveland brought Art Stillery into the classroom, because it
You get close to the microphone.
There you go.
There we go.
it teaches them. Is this okay?
This is good. Yeah,
That's good.
sorry.
Just get just a little closer. You're good.
You gotta do your NPR voice.
Yeah, there you go.
Oh, I do have an NPR voice.
Yeah, they do. Yeah. But you were saying, you teach art Stillery in the classroom. And,
What is Art Stillery?
Yeah.
Because Art Stillery is related to 723, right?
I mean, Art Stillery, obviously, Ilknur is the founder of it and the director
What
of
is
it.
that?
Well, I guess it's nice to kind of go back and look at why Art Stillery was created. I myself was a performer for years, and then I was performing in Dallas, and I'm going to try to be really politically savvy about this.
Savvy.
Savvy.
I was working on a show that I had invested so much time in, and it was an original piece. It wasn't my original piece. And I had gotten to know the character that I was working with for so long. And I had asked the writer and director, I don't think this female character would say this word in this situation. And because of the research I've done and all this, and I was asking to change one word. Now, I get no is a perfectly fine answer in this situation. However, the intentions behind the written piece that was, being debuted in the city for the first time, there was no, you were told that feedback was welcome, but feedback was really not welcome. Because I think you can speak to it.
Sure can.
There's an ego that exists.
Yeah.
There's healthy ego, and then there's this destructive, like patriarchal ego that exists, especially in the Dallas arts community.
Yes.
That no one really talks about.
Yeah.
And so I felt that underbelly so strongly one night when I walked out of a performance night. And I looked up at the Dallas skyline and I said, I'm not even from here. I'm from Chicago. Why don't I just go back to my old self when I was doing community-based work in Puerto Rican neighborhoods and working with poets and artists from different countries and just organically working with them and organically allowing teams around me to have an open dialogue. And I hadn't found a home like that anywhere in Dallas. I don't even know if there is a home like that anywhere else in Dallas besides us. I'm not sure.
No, I don't think so.
So it was that night when I walked out and I said, you have the capacity with like the years of experience and who you are to start something new where the base of it is that everyone has a voice and the people that are going to come on will never receive a no as the first thing that, departs my spirit. There's always a yes and, and we've adopted that really well.
Like the first rule of improv, right?
Yeah, yes, you just say yes to it.
Yeah.
And that's part of our process. Like if somebody says, well, Ilknur or Morgana, I don't like the way this feels, we'll say, try it.
Yeah.
And they'll always figure it out for themselves, like, oh, that doesn't work. That choice doesn't work. And we're like, yes. And so let's try it this way,
Yeah.
But that's how Art Stillery was born. And then I called this man that I just loved so much that I had worked with for 7 years, and he's a tech genius. And I know that out of anyone that could understand this insanity in my brain, it was Michael Cleveland.
Yeah.
And so I called Michael. He has only performed with me on stages, but we really weren't close friends. And I said, and I remember I was getting on, he remembers it too. I was driving up onto an on-ramp and I called Michael and I said, Michael, I'm starting a new company. And I'm going to do this realistically. This is not one of those companies like most where they start up and they die within a year. I said, this one's going to surpass that 1 year mark. And he goes, I don't know why I'm about to tell you this, but he's like, yes and yes and yes. He's like, let's do it. He's like, I don't even know you, but I can feel it already and it's going to happen. And if
He
you
actually
met,
sounds like
that's true. Like, does that shock anyone that knows
No,
him?
not at all.
He's like, yeah. And so we started having meetings and we welcomed a couple people in. And while we were having these initial startup meetings, there was definitely rule breaking going on and how we were talking about how the company was going to be created. But not everyone who's been theatrically based, like education, and can't see outside of it, are comfortable with those changes or comfortable with the way we were talking about how we wanted to create, how we wanted to withdraw from the idea of seasons and withdraw from the idea of patriarchal decisions and withdraw from all these concepts that we had been drilled in our brains. And it took a while for me to learn because I've never had a nonprofit before where somebody said, this is supernatural. This is like natural for this to happen. So stay in the moment and listen to them, and you will know that a nonprofit in the first year evolves. There's people that help start it up, and there's people that are meant to leave as the nonprofit itself finds its base.
Yeah.
So that's how Art Stillery started.
Yeah. And so, Art Stillery, I think, I think it fits 723 so well because both concepts are everyone has a voice,
Right.
and we're doing stuff that hasn't been done before. We talk about that all the time. I'm involved with Art Stillery and doing, writing for Family Dollar, which is the new show that's coming up and all these things. And every time
Family Dollar.
Yeah.
Like
Like the store.
Like the
yeah.
store?
Is it based in the store?
Oh,
No, it's
no,
based
but
in-
It's
Go on.
Does it have to do with Family Dollar?
yeah. I mean,
Yes.
I think Family Dollar does have. I think what dollar stores do to communities, that idea is hovering above the piece itself.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
The idea is it tells the story of these shotgun houses in West Dallas and this, community that's been rooted in our neighborhood that's now right now is experiencing gentrification. So we're telling these stories of people who've lived
Okay.
in this neighborhood for so long who have since been pushed out.
Yeah.
So it's a really powerful piece. But the idea is that nothing we do is traditional in a lot of ways. I mean, and I remember going to see Generations, and even as an audience member, they do immersive theater. So you know how you go to a show and you sit down and you watch something happen on the stage, and you have this imaginary kind of fourth wall that no one breaks, and there's still a separation between the show and the audience, and you're not involved in it in the same way that as an actor, you don't acknowledge the audience's presence unless it's kind of for comedic timing, I feel like sometimes. But with Art Stillery's productions, the audience is involved in the show. You walk around in the space, you participate in this. So this idea of as an audience member, you
That's so
also
cool.
you also have to be present.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean it
They
changes.
are present. They become
Very
so
much
present
so.
that they speak to us.
Yeah.
And,
Wow.
and you can speak to those experiences, and I want you to, because Generations Adam was the first time she has ever performed with us. But, I think the real big break in tradition is that the script is live even when the performance opens, and the
Right.
script changes every night. Because if you are an audience member that is truly in it, they will stop your character
Yeah.
and say, that was horrible, what happened to you? Let me tell you my story. And you're trying to perform,
Yeah.
but you
Yeah.
are still, I think, can you talk about that listening part while you're performing too? How
Yeah.
different that is?
What's so interesting about the process itself is that it's with Generations, we are all in different parts of 723. And it's 723 reimagined literally from Macy having service at any given time to a world that had a forest, bedrooms, living room, interesting material all throughout, and a church inside.
Yep.
Your services looked amazing with our
It really was. We had some services last year that have since moved into a new form, but we had services in the Generations set.
Yeah, and there was trees.
Yes.
Trees,
That was
a bathtub.
amazing.
Right,
Yeah.
everywhere.
It was so
Yeah.
cool.
So
was cool.
with this life that, the team, the actors have erected, we are living in all these different intimate moments.
Yeah.
And if I'm in my bed crying, I played a character named Eve. My boyfriend was Adam. And
They did it on purpose.
and we were both functioning under generational trauma,
Yeah.
whether it's from our family or from the church, etc. So if I'm in there, I'm in this emotionally abusive relationship with him that he's not even realizing that he's projecting on. I'm in my room crying, writing in my diary, and somebody may sit next to me crying or read my diary. Or follow me and Adam when we go out on a date, and have lunch outside and talk, and somebody's standing there listening, or I'm in this real intimate scene with my inner child self, played by one of our youth actors, Ava. She's so beautiful.
She's brilliant.
Yeah.
brilliant.
Oh, I
And
love Ava.
she played little Eve, and she literally follows me. My inner child follows me throughout the play, in distorted
That's
and
really
real
cool.
fashion.
So cool.
So
That's good
you know,
writing.
yeah, people are
Thank you.
talking at us,
That's cool.
And I'm reading the words of, literally we collect stories from individuals in the community. And some may be inspired from our own stories. We're saying that. People may be responding like, yeah, oh, what is that?
Or they're like, go get them.
Go get them. Yes. And then when you're done, something like that is heavy on any of our spirits. And then we have individuals that come to us with their experience, their story, and they'll hold your hand, and they look in your eyes,
They don't
and
leave.
they may cry and say, that was my story too.
Oof.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No
And
one's
they-
ever talked about my story.
Yeah, no one has ever talked about my story.
Wow.
And we stop and we listen and we share space. And we stop from even our moment of fatigue, because that's how we must show up in this immersive space with our community. It doesn't call on just being an actor, a director, a tech person. It calls on exactly what the spirit of what we are all in, right in this space, right?
Yeah.
And in 723, to be of service to people. And that's what these stories do. That's what Art Stillery does. We're on service in sharing stories.
Yeah.
And showing up for the community, being part of the community, making space for the community.
Yeah.
So literally, you have to make space and during the show when you're in this immersive moment and afterwards, even if I'm soaking wet after coming out of that tub
Because they filled the tub up.
I made her go in a tub.
That's awesome.
in the middle of
Cleanse
winter.
herself.
It was in the middle of 723, this full bathtub every night.
my
And they did
gosh.
this. I mean, the imagery for me really resonated with baptism. And it was
At least
just,
you gave her warm water, right? Like
Oh,
at least,
you have no idea what our process was like? Yeah. I mean, your
get
warm
involved.
water just came I mean, the joke was we just wanted to give her cold water, but every night the entire cast,
night.
even little Ava, would be putting mugs of water into the microwave because that's the
Yeah.
only thing she could do, and heating
Yeah.
them up and putting it in the
It was
tub.
So
a big,
sweet.
everything's a ritual.
Everything
Yeah.
is a ritual
Yeah.
in what we do.
Yeah. But we take those stories and we write them in, and even in our process, we debate, we argue,
I love it.
we go through like, is that true? Would they do that? This person's story says this.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, I have something similar. Well, what do we hold true? What do we make space for
We
narrative?
challenge each other as
Yeah.
a team a lot.
That's so interesting.
And that's the beautiful stuff, because I always ask the team, right? Like after we have a moment like that,
Right.
could you have that safe space somewhere else and feel like you can get angry? And I've thrown pens across the stage because I'm advocating for a story, and we've actually had, like, Michael Cleveland is an amazing writer. And he wrote like 90 pages for Generations of Adam.
Oh,
Yeah.
yes, he did.
And,
I forgot.
and our other partner, Johnny Rutledge, and I got together and we read his work without him.
Yeah.
Because we do this to each other. And I go, where did these stories come from? And Johnny's like, I don't know. And we had to have a talk with him. And like everybody was in their own cars in different parts of DFW. And everybody was in a Starbucks line, which was so funny.
That's
And we're
funny.
all in our trucks. And we're like, hey, Michael. And he's like, hi, guys. And we were like, hey, Michael, you're a really good writer. He's like, thanks. And, it was much deeper than that. But we're like, Michael, where'd you get those stories from? He's like, I wrote them. And we're like, no, I know, but where did the stories come from? He's like, I wrote them. And we were like, we need to go backwards a little bit.
Yeah.
We need to go backwards. And he took it. Like, he is an example of what our core team really
Yeah.
is. He is the finest example of a leader in this organization, because he released his 90 pages
Wow.
to us.
That's a level. That's really vulnerable to do that.
And
Kinda.
even more so, I mean, it's his story.
It was his
So it's like,
They're like
really-
his personal. story.
Yes.
Yes.
So when she says
Oh
like,
my gosh.
he says, I wrote it. He wrote it from much
Did he
of
act
his
those?
experience.
Who played? I don't remember who played this.
He couldn't act in it. It was
Too personal.
Too personal.
So that's I kind of this is why I was really looking forward to this episode, because I went to acting school and I thought about becoming an actor. I went to Oklahoma City University, if y'all are familiar with it at all, and a lot of my friends are actors and things like that, and their process is just so interesting. So I think this concept of playing somebody that you're not that person, and you it's such a. Is there ever a time when you are so much that person that, or is there a line that, like, you let yourself feel those stories and those emotions so deeply that it's hard to even separate them from, like, Ilknur or Morgana? Have you ever had that kind of experience where you're so present with that other person's story and emotion to where, you know what I mean?
I feel
Yeah.
like we both can say, if we focus on Generations for the two of
I'm
us,
gonna telepathy the
Yeah.
word that we use that starts with the letter M to answer this question.
him,
That we go,
Oh yeah, real meta. It was like beyond. It was beyond.
Like we explained the acting style is freaking meta.
Yeah, like that. So to answer your question, much of like what we were writing was other people's pieces and our stories, and she and I were going through things at the same time, you know, and as we look at relationships, and we would in our debates we would go back like, it's not like that. Well, my therapist said, and so. And that investment does become this interesting entanglement. And yes, like as you walk through the space and you're in this person, you can't help but walk through your own experience. And especially with an organization like Art Stillery, that's just it. Now, yes, we do call on actors, and at times because we align ourselves, which is, you know, I feel very lucky that Ilknur and Michael were willing to align themselves with me to be in this piece because the character called to me, you know, in a very special way. And I know with several actors, you know, because there's crying, there's like this connection, you know, I had to face certain demons throughout that process. Do I have that with every play that I've acted in? No. But in this really interesting retrospect of all these stories that we were laying out on stage, in this space, not on stage, in this space, we had that connection. So you don't have to.
Yeah.
It may just organically happen.
It seems like actors and actresses, like, that's almost a fine line for some. Like, I mean, you hear stories about people like Heath Ledger or Daniel Day-Lewis
all
and
the people
folks
that
like
do
that.
the
who do method
immersive,
acting
yeah.
and things like that, where sometimes that line is maybe too blurred. But, I mean, yeah, that's so interesting. And I'd imagine it's probably even... there's like live performances where you're up on a stage and you're kind of away from, like, there's the audience, there's like a very clear division. There's the audience and then there's the stage. But y'all have this setup where the audience is almost part of the set. And so,
not almost, I mean, they really are. I mean, I remember going to Generations and being like, it was this weird experience where I was like, I feel like I'm in the way and also part of it.
Yeah.
And after the show, I mean, you guys talk about this a lot, is this idea of, like, people came up to you guys and shared their stories. I remember watching the show and going, oh, that happened to me. And so this, you know, this moment where not only are the actors in the moment, but I feel like you cultivate a space where the audience is also in the moment.
Yeah.
And we're hoping that we're healing you.
Exactly.
Which brings us to the beautiful pun of this episode of present.
Yeah.
And so, you know, you
Talk
have
about
to,
that,
we have to be present for everyone in this space. We have to be present for, number one, the person whose story that we are living. I think that's one of the most important things. We have to be present for our team, and we have to be present for any soul that walks through that door. And we can't fake it. Because there's a reason that people came through that door to see us. And so, man, I'm sure, like, I could be like, man, I'm tired, I don't do this, I'm gonna get this stuff. But I know that I'm like, oh man, I need to get my stuff together because I don't know who may need to hear this story.
Yeah.
And that's kind of like that dire feeling that brought me present any given day, and that, like, I have to do this story justice. I think Ilknur talks about it. She would talk about that every night. Like, we have to do, you know, the storyteller's story justice. And it's all part of their healing, you know, even if they're like have made peace with whatever.
Yeah.
But we're carrying it on for the next person who needs it. Oh my God, I'm like feeling the energy.
Yeah.
Just thinking about
It's coming into me, and I'm like,
and I'm thinking about when people came to me,
Yeah.
you know, that I had to, going back to what I was saying earlier, had to be present for. So it's so many, and when you think about the extremes that you were talking about earlier, like, we've had to in planning and executing the piece draw boundaries. You draw boundaries like I can't do this, or I have to do this, or I can't get there, or like I need a coat, I need warm water, whatever that is. So that we can do it justice. And then some days you get so lost in the piece. I started doing things that, I'm supposed to stick to my script.
But also, the script is fluid.
It's fluid.
Yeah.
So I could play with some things.
And we'll tell you what it feels like because our process takes about a year, and I really feel like we work with some of the most intelligent people.
Yeah.
She is a miracle to us.
Stop it.
Morgana rocks my
Stop
socks.
it.
There's been a natural.
She's a gift.
Your mama sent me a check before I got here. I was like cashing it. She's like, talk good about it. I always say
funny.
that. Did your mom write a check?
So done.
That's hilarious.
There's just been like this evolution, and as the organization builds, it calls upon for other elements to come in and continue to push her up. I see her as a female entity. Of course I do. And that's when you came in. It was calling for someone like you to come in. And there is always a point where, we've worked with somebody for a year and a half, and then I always have this side conversation with Michael, and I say, I feel like I've been asking Morgana for a year, but I haven't really been asking her.
You manifested me.
Right? We had really lame conversations over coffee and wine about us getting closer, and I'm your sister and you're my sister. And
You don't ask about Sunday Cry Fest of joy and female empowerment at 723.
We had a great conversation on Sunday. That was we were meant to be writing, and it ended up being an hour of just like beautiful conversation. And I think that's just the glory of the space and what it lends itself to is that when you walk in, I don't really know how to describe it, but you almost want to open yourself up to whatever the space holds for the day.
Yeah.
We talked about the story from Sunday, which was so cool. We met a guy who was taking pictures outside the space, and I walked out and I said, "Hey, I'm Macy. I'm the pastor of 723. What's up?" And he was like, I'm just taking pictures of graffiti. And he came back with his family and said, "We would love to use this space Christmas Day to pack food for the homeless."
Oh, wow.
And we said,
real?
"Absolutely. For real. I'm not kidding."
We're looking for volunteers.
Yeah.
Well, Christmas miracle right there.
So Christmas Day,
some-
the Denton family offered us this opportunity, and they're coming at noon, and we've got people who are part of Art Stillery who are already going to be there. I'll be there for a little bit too, and
That's amazing.
that's the kind of stuff that happens there.
that's the real special stuff that happens because we don't have a lot of money as Art Stillery, right?
No, we do not.
But the hustle that the team does, the free hustle that the team does
Right.
for community, because we
Loving
have faith
hustle.
that it will be supported
Yeah.
as we keep on going. There's a natural
Absolutely.
evolution to it. Because we're also at the same time, and correct me if I'm wrong, we're trying to preserve the space as it is.
Yes.
There is a there's this avenue, and we've seen a lot of our cultural centers go in that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is another podcast. We've seen our cultural centers go in a direction where they like to say it's about community, but it's not based in community anymore. It's based in funds.
Yeah, it departs
Yeah.
from this idea of being a space for the neighbors and becomes
Right.
being a space to almost self-promote. And that's the exact opposite of what we're doing at 723.
We talk about that all the time
Yeah.
because Macy and I have had so many conversations before Morgana came, and then when Morgana came, she started to enlighten our conversations
dreaming.
to another level.
Yeah.
And it's this idea of we need funding, right? And we're getting it. We have been working so hard. But it is so important for us. What do we call it? Our curated space. It's not a rental house.
No.
It's a curated space. 723 actually has its own energy about itself that even before the pandemic, Art Stillery was hired to do the national convening. And it was for artists of color from all across the United States came to Dallas and were searching for spaces to have their convening evening where they all joined together and had an evening together where they supported local restaurants and us as an arts group. And we programmed the entire night at 723.
Yeah.
So as we're going through this night, you got to understand, core team, we're working so hard that we don't even acknowledge the greatness that is around us. It's only until after everyone leaves the building and then we crack open a bottle of wine for ourselves and we go, what just happened?
Yeah.
But an interesting thing during this event where it was like 300 people there, all artists of color, like amazing artists, started pulling our people aside going, how did you do this? How'd you create this? What are we feeling in here? You know, and they're like, well, I guess Ilknur can speak to it. I'm like, I'm sure you can too. So why don't you start speaking to it? Because there's no right or wrong way to speak to it. It's more of like a heart place conversation, isn't it?
Yeah.
So I want to ask this because I think there's going to be a lot of people listening to this who maybe don't really want to admit it or not. And sometimes I think we all have a problem admitting, like, being present in the moment is a very scary thing sometimes. It's a very scary thing. And as people who do live performance art, you have to be present. But I'd imagine that sometimes it's pretty scary to open yourself up to what you're actually feeling. Or maybe not. Maybe you've gotten comfortable with like what you're feeling in that emotion.
I mean, Ilknur does cry every meeting we have.
Yeah, my feelings are out on a plate for you all the time. It's not a scary place for me. It's a place of growth for me with the people I'm with.
Yeah.
And I think that's what we do for the people that work with us too. They will come to us very closed, and we've had rehearsals that have turned into emotional round group table sittings. Like, remember? We were having issues in the cast because the show was sparking so much, how would you call it?
I mean, you could say like, well, it's just kind of that, what you're asking. Like, I'm having discomfort and trying to be present with a play that talks about trauma in different ways.
Yeah.
Right.
So we were navigating that discomfort. And so we had to come together.
We just canceled rehearsal.
Yeah,
and
we
instead,
stopped.
we did a group meeting together.
And we just talked through our life stories.
Everyone talked through their life story.
Yeah.
Where they came from, what their perception of race is,
Yeah.
what their own race was.
Family, growing up. And then we cleansed the space.
And then we burned some
And we hugged.
Some
and everyone
sage.
started hugging. I think
Yeah.
it was important for us to, because so many of us see skin color and we assume they're of a certain race. You know, like our embodied movement therapist, Conchetta Trotsky, you look at her and you assume her race is just white Caucasian. She is South.
What? I'm like, I never know. I just dream. I will never know until you reveal.
She's South African and
She's so
Italian.
beautiful.
Wow.
She was born and raised in South Africa. Her father is South African. You know, and I think with these like race conversations we're having these days, that is something she's been struggling with because she doesn't know she doesn't know how much space am I allowed to hold in sharing this about myself when there's so many other things to be spoken about. But and I think that's what our convening was that we had that day, was for us to see each other past our skin color.
Right.
You know, and what we learned that someone had lost their father. That was it that year, you know, and someone had lost somebody else they loved so much that year, and
Taking care of parents who had health problems, and they were navigating what does that look like for them as young people.
So that's a hard thing for people to be present to, though.
Yeah.
It's like people have all the kinds of things like that. And you can imagine it's probably 10 times worse this year because things are just like, it's like amplified by the fact that you can't really go out and get out and about, that kind of thing. So what do? I think a lot of people choose to ignore how they feel.
Oh, they shut it
choose
down.
to ignore that. How do you open yourself up to how you feel. Does that make sense?
I think the question is, how do we cultivate space to be open, to feel, we talk about, in the opening convocation of art cultivation, we talk about it being a brave, safe space. And I think that highlights it. So, in all your experience with doing really vulnerable work, how do we cultivate spaces where people feel like they can have those vulnerable moments, like you're saying, be open to what they're feeling instead of shutting it down and not feeling it because they're so afraid of what they feel?
You have to mindfully create that space.
Yeah.
Your leaders have to mindfully create that space.
Yeah, that's what we
That's what it
navigate
is.
with through any kind of conversations that we have. The topics that we have to, bring up are hard, and
Yeah.
I think when we were writing, I was talking about with, as I am a Black woman writing for a Black family in Family Dollar, that I don't want my family to have to be the trauma family. And I'm like,
That's
they're
a
gonna have
fine point.
Yeah, I'm like, they're going to have
trauma
black
family.
joy.
Yeah.
And so, but still, in saying that, I know that there are going to be stories that my actors will have to live through, and then our people will see, and oh my goodness. It's part in asking ourselves, there's the long range part of we have to do the work if we really want to, show up, I'm not going to take us down that road. I am not Conchetta. I do not have any kind of license of any sort.
Basically,
she will.
we recommend therapy for
Right.
people.
And then it's part of that cultivation of how you say, here is a space. You are welcome to come in here. We are going to be talking through these subjects. They may be hard, and we will try our very best to cultivate a space of love, compassion, bravery.
I feel like you can do that. I feel like you can do that maybe with even if you're a spouse or if you're a parent or if you're
Totally.
You put that out there.
right.
You got to say it and speak it.
Yeah. Well, I think, communication is so,
Yeah.
we can say it's a safe space, but unless we actually look somebody in the eye and say, hey, I'm here to listen to what you have to say without any offering of advice or judgment. I think I had a professor in undergrad who I would complain to and talk about how what things were difficult and how I was struggling. And he had a great saying where he would say, do you want comfort or do you want a solution? And I love that line because then that opens space for someone to say, I just need you to listen to my story. And you go, great, let's grab a cup of coffee and I'll listen. Or they can say, I really want to solve this. I need help. And then you can say, well, I've had this experience, or here's the card to my therapist. I think that's the idea, is just being able to speak into existence. That the fact
Where
that
do you find that courage though? Because there's going to be a lot of people that probably listen to this and are like, I've been burying how I feel about XYZ for a long time. And, I think there's something to be learned from both of you about how to do that. And for people that are they're terrified of how they feel, and to even speak it into existence is a terrifying thing.
Oh, yeah. I know for generations, there was a mix of, number one, people there's the people who drive by who wonder, what is the energy of 723?
that happens a lot, actually.
And they wonder what it is. They may never come in. Then it's those who come. And then it's those who actually buy a ticket to an Art Stillery play. It's those who stay for a little bit, and those who stay the whole time to the end. Those people may leave, and then there's some who may write down their thought and send it. There may be somebody who speaks their thought. There may be someone who comes to the Instagram or Facebook and write a thought, or send an email, or have access to Ilknur to call. I think the beauty also is finding out, how do you want to communicate, even just a little bit. Even just for someone to come and say I really enjoyed this. Just that is a start.
Yeah.
Because you're opening up voice and a space to speak. And then that same person might come back again
Yeah.
and say, you know, I was here twice.
Yeah.
And then may send a random email to Ilknur
All the time.
or a text through a friend.
How can I work with you all?
That was my story. How can I work? And even if we talk about art cultivation, our variety shows, the people who pass by,
Oh, yeah.
the people who come up and say, I was walking my dog, the Denton family, you know, the other day, the people who come and watch, and then the people who say, I love this community, can I help? Because they feel seen. They want community so they can get to that point of courage to speak.
Yeah.
And sometimes it takes all those steps and
And all those things that you named sound so small, but for some, it's probably
Tremendous work
like
for
a
them.
big step.
Yeah.
Yeah.
and maybe they don't even know that with those steps that it's just as small as that is empowering. Just a step, just looking through a glass to wonder about something, to read something that connects to it, you know. I was reading a book before I came here. I'm going to put my feelings all out there, y'all, my realness. I was reading a Iyanla Van Zant book called In the Meantime. And, you know, it was one of those afternoons, and then I was like, I've got to go. But the fact that I got on Amazon, I was looking through something that led me to this book. I bought that book. It came at the perfect moment of a little bit of wait in between to read a few things that sparked how I feel at this point. And also for people to know they're not alone, and everything, if we talk about presence, happens for a reason. And these tiny steps that may seem big may even happen with the power of the divine or the universe, even when they don't realize it, to get them past that hurdle.
Yeah.
I say these things because I'm living through it in many ways.
Yeah.
And I hope whoever's listening feels empowered that even the smallest step. So I want to change that narrative for the listeners that they may feel it's big, though it be big. You know, try even the smallest things, or just listen to this, and in a year, it may come back where they write down one fear or emotion, or they drive to 723, just drive by. They may just be going to get a coffee at Houndstooth, I don't know, or to the grocery store. And then they enter and they begin that journey of change and evolution.
We also offer tools for that growth for somebody that you are speaking of to have. So, you know, we've been working for 4 years to perfect embodied movement modalities, and we offer that to community.
What is embodied movement? Can you explain that a little bit?
So it's a therapeutic form of allowing your voice to speak out, and it uses movement. So it's connecting mind and movement and spirit together into one exercise, and it's roughly about 4-hour sessions, and they could be longer.
That's a long session.
Yeah, and
It's powerful, though.
the time goes so fast.
Yes.
And it's always been led by Conchetta, because she's a licensed therapist.
Yeah.
And
She's got a lot of titles next to her name.
yeah, it's like
You should have her on the podcast. That sounds awesome.
Oh,
Yeah,
you should
she's
do,
incredible.
Please.
Yeah.
And so she leads, and then one of us will always be a co-leader with her.
Yeah.
And we make this safe at 723 Safe, and we do this 4-hour session. We feed them. We also provide books for them to write, because not everybody is ready to verbally share when the process is done. There's no forcing people, but what it is allowing them to do is work through trauma that hopefully we pray that when they get home to their spouses, that they can speak to them in a different way. And we've seen that happening for people.
And what was beautiful that she taught through the process, because she was, you know, literally a physical director for me, is where we hold it in our bodies.
Yeah, that's so
And-
interesting.
yeah,
to me.
and-
where we hold stress.
Yes.
No, as we all
And-
like move our
As
shoulders.
And literally how
my
we cover
shoulders.
parts. You know, she
Yeah.
asked me a simple question about like, I think it was with my character Eve, and like what I think about love. And I took my right hand over my heart, and one hand, I was like thinking it was positive. She said, no, you're literally pushing it away. So when we think of how the movements, literally through embodied movement, the movements that we make when we like try to guard areas of our body because of trauma.
Yeah.
And that was powerful when we were doing the work that we did. And when she taught me that, I was like,
That's a game changer.
Mind blown.
Yeah,
Right.
mind blown.
So the other side of this that I'm curious about is for those people who are walking alongside somebody who's feeling those kinds of emotions, what advice or what encouragement could you give them to hold, I think you said hold space. But what's that like? Like it's being present with somebody else who is trying to become present to themselves.
Ooh, that's a way
How do you do that with them?
I think, is it okay?
oh, please go. I talk a lot.
For us, it's always about somebody's journey. You cannot cure your partner. Your partner has to go on their own journey.
Yes.
They have to choose to go on that journey. And you have to release them to that journey. Because so many of us stay for so long, and it's so painful for so many people. And this is partnerships and friendship. This is partnerships in love. This is partnership with your child that has addiction.
This is a business partnerships.
Business partnership.
Workplace,
And
everything.
You know, and the embodied movement that we're doing, that is open to the general public.
Yeah.
We have now become official CAP artists through the city. Any church, any organization can ask us to give them a 4-hour session, and we can go outside and do it.
I want to do it. This is
And the
kind of
city,
terrifying but kind of fun.
yeah,
Let's do it.
And the city pays for it. And we've had youth members from here terrified, have never shared their narrative, and walked in like this. Like this one guy walked in like this.
That's real.
And it hurt me to watch him. And by the end of it, it's like, and he was journaling. And everything that was in here went into the paper. And when we did our final round session, he was here. And we never forced them to speak, but what that is for that human being is the beginning of their journey. And during your journey, you have to seek out different avenues to help yourself. The thing that we do wrong as human beings is we blame others for the situation that's happening, when really you have to look at yourself first and do that. Clean up your own house. You find a therapist. If you have no money, there are so many wonderful organizations out there that have free sessions at night. I used to go to AA meetings. I used to go to Narcotics Anonymous.
We have all manner of 12-step programs.
Let's say
here.
that's a huge, it's a huge
Big part
program
of
here
what
at
we
Lovers
do.
Lane. Is we have one of the largest 12-step programs I think in the nation here.
And those programs are about supporting one another. I didn't have to be somebody, and I wasn't somebody who took narcotics, but I was somebody who kept on dating people who were abusive. And that was not their fault. That was my fault for welcoming them into my life. And so what work did I have to do to say, I am not going to choose to be in this type of partnership anymore. And the only way I'm going to free myself of it is to look at what trauma I have. And when you start doing that work on yourself, what I realized for myself is, oh, Lord have mercy, there's this little 14-year-old, 12-year-old girl. She's just driving my life. She's like in my front seat, like, let's go, let's destroy this.
14-year-old.
Let's heal your parents through your grown adult relationships today with my 12-year-old mentality.
And we, just as friends who are creating work, you know, where some of this carries over, like, to what you were saying, and like, you know, how do we support someone going this walk? I mean, what's great that Ilknur does, like if I'm going through some sort of situation, she'll be like, you know, something that I've been going through, not so much blaming me or toxic positivity or like, this is what you should do. But it's always something through love offering, you know, a love offering
Thank you for that.
Yeah, of course. Like, it's true. Like, it's a love offering of thought, of action or practice, and many of which, you were saying, like, oh man, divine compassion is in your home. And I literally went around lighting candles in my home saying, my home is filled with divine compassion. My home is filled. And
Your divine goddess was in my house going, could you please get her? I'm right here. Can she see me, please?
Yes. And just like saying that, I put it into whatever woo-woo practice I was doing at home. For the listeners, I don't know. I'm kind of a mystic, Christian.
Me
God
too.
bless everyone.
too.
We do the
Yeah.
crystals and the things and the that. So,
My fiance loves Palo Santo.
hello.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Hello, Clint.
She wants that for Christmas. She's like, give me like a year's supply of Palo Santo.
Good, as we should.
I love it. But yeah, just with all that, tools of like how people are using, but not putting that on people, not projecting, just like this is a love offering, and because this is something that I do. And that's what I'm trying to navigate, even if people are like, Morgana, how do you talk like that? I get a lot of that, and I'm like, I don't know. It's for me an everyday practice, which I know y'all can speak of as leaders. People, when they see people who are doing well or who are working specific organizations or doing the work like we do, and it's like, we don't have all the answers. We're literally navigating, and then we use those tools. Like Ilknur brings a lot of tools that she learns from Conchetta, brings in from therapy, from other groups, from workshops. I do the same too, from readings, from, I don't know, movies, documentaries, like literally. And we bring it to the table when we create and we converse as friends. And it's all just love offerings.
It is.
Yeah.
I
Even
love
in the hardest times, it
love
is.
offerings.
It's all heart speak, and
Yeah.
you hear that from people who are great leaders in healing practice, and they always say they're not speaking from their heart place. You're not going to get anywhere until they learn how to get to that, and that in itself is a journey.
Yeah.
And sometimes we just push and push because we want to like speak gutturally, and like they don't get it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we as a team, to uplift what you said, we're not perfect either. Like,
I'm gonna say definitely not perfect. I'm just gonna lay that out there. Super not.
that's my favorite conversation that I get to have with my team is, hey, how do we better ourselves as leaders? What kind of training do you think we should go get? Like, hey, we had this incident with Generations of Adam, and we could, and we'll talk that way.
Yeah.
We could have been better in that situation.
Yeah.
So many directors will blame, blame. And that's how Art Stillery is different too. Like, in most companies, you are not allowed to say, I don't feel wholly right now with what's happening, especially like the week before opening. Like, there's all this stress, and I get it.
Oh, that tech week.
Yeah.
Ugh.
But, and so we don't do tech weeks.
Right.
We don't do tech week. Tech starts day one of rehearsal so that it's melded into the entire process. We don't audition because all we need to do is hear your voice and hear your understanding of the piece. So our auditions are conversations.
I'm pretty sure Ilknur texted me and was like, hey, do you want to do this part in the Family Dollar show? And I was like, yeah, sure, sounds good.
Because I know you.
Yeah.
You know, and I knew that you would hear, that you already heard this person.
I love it. All right. Last question, since we could probably, this could turn into a 3-hour podcast.
I mean,
if we aren't
honestly,
careful.
when Morgana and I got coffee a few weeks ago, I expected like 45 minutes, and it was a 2.5-hour conversation.
I was like, girl, I have a Zoom. I've got to go.
Every time I know
That's
to never
fantastic.
schedule meetings after I meet with these two because I'm like, it's going to be way longer than I
We
anticipate.
just start like, there's everything. And then we're
everything.
like, I'm uplifting you. And
I
I'm
love
uplifting
you.
you.
Oh, I love it.
I love it so much.
What does it mean to be present in the moment? What's one tip that you could give for somebody to be present in the moment?
Let's make it one sentence.
Oh,
Sorry.
You can do it.
how did you just think that that's possible with us?
I usually give.
You got it.
I
I
give
have a
Ilknur 2
sentence.
sentences.
You've got it? Morgana, you got it?
I
Go
think
ahead,
I
I'm gonna
do.
try it. You go first.
To see the other.
Ooh,
Yeah, that's good.
that's a good one.
Yeah.
Should I play Jeopardy music? Just to wait you
I'm
out.
trying to think. You know me. I think
I
in
know.
novels.
We'll
and I
give
think
you
in circles.
We'll give you like 2 or 3.
2 or 3 sentences.
2 or 3 sentences. How do you be present with somebody?
How to be
how do you
present.
how do you just be present?
Yeah,
How
how
to
to
be present is that it leads, I believe, to communication theory. And you had started talking about that theoretical base, which is actually a truth in communication study. Because I was a communication professor for like 10 years. To be truly in the moment is to release your mind of judgment and thought when you are in front of a person, whether you had the worst day of your life, but you must compartmentalize. You must release so that you can fully be in front of that person and receive them.
Yes. To see and receive.
Yeah. To see
Welcome
and
to Art
receive.
Stillery in
stuff.
723.
That was good. I want that on a t-shirt.
Buy our t-shirts.
Oh yeah, we have t-shirts now.
They're
Support
very
us.
soft. We worked very hard to find the softest shirts.
I
All
can't
right.
confirm.
When does Family Dollar? When is that happening?
April
April.
2021.
However, we have readings coming up. January 16th outdoors.
Yep.
At 7:23.
Physical distance at 723.
And,
And then
Dr. Campbell is actually going to be one of the panelists because
Yes.
he knows the history
Thank
of West
goodness.
Dallas. Yeah.
I love Ted Campbell so
Yeah.
much.
yes.
And then we're working on planning a panel based around divine femininity at 723 in
Divine
March.
femininity?
Yeah.
Yes.
So the
Very
idea
interesting.
and the hope, I mean, my brainchild hopefully works out that a Friday night is a panel and then a Saturday morning is a session for all those who identify as female to come and kind of discuss and talk and have a,
It'll be wonderful.
yeah, it's going to be really pretty.
And
Well,
then,
sorry.
Oh no!
Go ahead. One more.
But after that,
Yeah.
Dr. Campbell is also going to be with us at the Dallas Museum of Art doing a reading
Yep. February.
in February.
Man, he's busy.
Yeah.
Yeah, we booked him for 2 contracts.
Yeah.
Dr. Ted Campbell.
So there's going to be a lot happening that hopefully, with COVID and everything, be outside or be safe. But keep an eye on the 723 website and Art Stillery's website. There's going to be a lot happening in 2021 that we're all
yeah.
very excited about.
Real excited.
Tremendously.
Well, thank you so much for your
Thank
time.
you all.
Thank
I've
you
learned
for
a lot.
having
It's been a
us.
great conversation.
That was
Thanks,
wonderful.
guys.
Thank you.
We love you.
We love Macy.
I love you guys too.
It's okay.
You're
You
also
barely know.
lovely.
It's fine. Yeah.
We love Pastor Macy.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys. You can keep saying that.
All right. Well, folks, we'll hear you guys next time.
If you enjoyed the show, be sure to rate, review, and subscribe on wherever you listen to your podcasts. That really helps us get the word out about Out on a Limb and helps other people find our podcast. From all of us here at Lovers Lane,
Thanks for going out on a limb with us.